As some of you might have guessed, I chose to show my wolf models for my first random video in a while to lead in to this one. In case you're wondering, both my Havallagata Cosmoceratops and Sinoceratops have been confirmed lost in transit, the first time in years this has happened. So it's a consolation that I received this a lot earlier than expected. This is Rebor's dire wolf. As always, there are two variants. We have the low raw plain, which is coloured in a brown. We also have the, I don't know how to pronounce this, it's Icelandic I think, Havallagata, the Nord version that hints at the Game of Thrones dire wolves. Rebor does like its bands. Low Raw was a post-rock band, and Havallagata the name of one of their albums. And of course, we had Meta and Lika before. As with the Smilodon, Rebor claims a 1 to 10 to 1 to 12 scale. The dire wolf was about the same size as the largest grey wolves today, with a length of 1.75 meters or 5.8 feet. And accounting for the curve in this body, this model measures 17 centimeters or 6.7 inches, making this about 1 to 10 scale. And taking shoulder height of 96.5 centimeters or 69 inches, and accounting for the bend in this elbow, I get roughly 8.7 centimeters or 3.4 inches, or about 1 to 11. So I think it agrees with the claimed scale range. You guys can advise me. The tallest point is at the haunches here at about 8.8 centimeters or 3.5 inches. And here's how it looks like next to a 1 to 10 humanoid. Overall impression, the pose is of an actively stalking wolf. The plain version is, well, rather plain. And even though there are subtleties in the painting, it lacks the same degree of red as in the promo images, looking quite dirty brown and monotonous. And hopefully, I'm just really unlucky and yours will be much better. There is some variability, but by today's standards, it strikes me as being rather too simplistic. The one in the Nord is a lot nicer, as you'll see more closely later. As much as I like wolves, I know very little about mammals in general, so I won't be able to speak intelligently about accuracy and such. Though there's something very spiritual about the wolf that speaks to me. And I'm hoping you guys can share your thoughts and fill me in. So let's just do a show and tell of these models. First, the plain version. Starting at the head. Like the Smilodon, the head is interchangeable, actually making it easier to review. Unlike the Smilodon, which came with 2, this comes with 3. First here you see the standard one that's already attached, with the mouth slightly agape and possibly salivating in anticipation of a kill. You can see the detail that Rebor does so well when it comes to fur. Then infusing that fur with very naturalistic paint applications. The teeth do have a bit of shine, but lack the quality of shiny enamel that we saw in the Smilodon. But I must say that the teeth are still very carefully painted and much better than in some dinosaur models we've seen. Individually, the eyes are also very carefully painted. But together, there's a kind of asymmetry in directionality of gaze which makes it look a little cross-eyed. The nose does have a nice wet shine to it. Interchangeable heads do away with articulated jaws, which means less ugly seam lines, theoretically. Mammalian fur is a hit and miss when it comes to hiding the joint. Sometimes they hide the seam very well, and other times not so much. Here it's rather obvious. but more unfortunately is this line across the face, marking where the two pieces join. It's a little less obvious on this one, but more so in this snarling one. And it extends into the mouth, so some of you may be disturbed by this. And while here, we can look at the inside of the mouth. And finally, we can look at the third head here. Now this one is the wolf at rest, which is a calm look I've started to prefer in recent years. The mouth closure looks quite natural, so I really like this. Generally, I think of an animal spending more time in repose than roaring, hunting, and fighting, and I like models that show that. And here I think you can really appreciate the fine detail in the facial fur. And the subtle rendering of the follicle pits on the vibrissae pads has a realism I don't often see in mammalian models. You can see the eyeballs don't track together again, which is something I'm particular about. Now just a quick once-over of the body. You can see the overall proportions here, which I'm sure you'll be more educated on than I am. But first we can look at the detail and how Rebor has sculpted the fall of the fur over the different areas, and I really am impressed with how well they do here, just like I was with the Smilodon. And we can see as we move along, there are some color complexities. Though not like I'd hoped from the release images of the Paint Master. I dare say the waist is a little stylistic, expecting to see something thicker. But there are hints of ribs here, so perhaps living in lean times. Just look at the form of the arms. The nails. The paw pads. Then the legs now. The foot pads, and on the underside, anatomically correct. And finally, the tail. Very nice all in all. Now for the other more fantasy-like wolf, the Nordic version. Now here, besides the color difference, which I actually prefer, you see that there is, if not a new sculpt, then certainly extensive retooling of the heads. There's an overall very cunning, sentient look to the animal, almost like an evil smile. Or I'm just anthropomorphizing. It just has a menacing look to me. It's how I visualize Morgrim from the Narnia Chronicles actually. Maybe it's the additional goatee here. And here you can see once again those details are remarked in the other version. And some of those color fades are really nice here. I'm going to take out the snarling head. And just a piece of advice for you. These are packed very tightly, so there's hardly any allowance. To prevent paint scuffing, you might want to cut around to create more play, making removal and replacement easy. Alright, the snarling head here. I'll look at the layered detail, the colors as well. The wet nose, and these teeth, really very well painted. And the one in repose, you can see the very fine detail in the face. You can just imagine, even at rest, he's hatching some kind of plot. Again, just look at that detail throughout. And by the way, I don't know if this was intentional, but even the connecting post has a very nice color fade to it. And a once-over of the body. Just look at that color transition. Much nicer than the plane, I feel. It's the same sculpt here as far as I can tell, and you see once again that beautiful paint application. Even pick out some of the yellow or orange in there. I really wish I could have the other more natural looking wolf in this color instead. You see the body, and the legs, to the feet, the arms, to the hands. I'm always pleased with how Rebor handles the fur. The underside, and then the tail. Very nice looking. Alright, comparisons. First, let's compare the head sculpts. You can see clearly the more stylized form in the fantasy version. Now, plenty of retooling or resculpting done. The proportions, because of the extra fur, are slightly different. And in fact, the Nord gives me more of a squared-off appearance that I wish we saw more of in the plane. The details are equally fine. Then we have the snarling head. Even within the same version, I like how you get those subtler differences, such as the difference in ear positioning and shifting muscle bulk. And finally, the one at rest. Again, I have to say I like the color fading of the connecting posts. Don't know if that was intentional, but if so, it's a very nice touch. Finally, the body. Again, I really prefer the color on this one. just more contrasts and complexities. Actually, I wonder, let me just quickly try something. Yup, they actually do fit. So if you're in the mood for some chimerization, okay, not very good on this one here, but still serviceable. The next thing I think you want to see is how it compares to Rebor's previous mammal, the Rebor Smilodon. You'll see there's a huge size difference. This Smilodon just looking like a total brute, and really doesn't look like 1 to 10 or 1 to 12 scale. And here's what I meant about the teeth. The wolf is still very nice, but look at the shine of Smilodon, and you can really see the difference. Inside the mouth, there appears to be more complexity in paint application too. Another face-off here. And now against the brown. The different sizes of the head give you an idea for a size reference if you have the Smilodon. I think you can see that the fur rendition I praised in Smilodon is here in the wolf as well. Not just in the sculpt, but also the paint application. At least in the Nord. Rebor really does its mammals very well. I believe in my review, I mentioned some stylization in the Smilodon, so in terms of that, you might find it goes with the fantasy wolf better. But really, I encourage you guys to just go with what you want. Don't let anyone disparage your choices and tell you what you should or shouldn't like. Go with what you want. It's your money and your collection. I don't have any other dire wolves, but what I can show you are the extant wolves I do have, which I reviewed yesterday. Here we have the JXK North American Grey Wolf. You can clearly see a different aesthetic going on, and even when we looked at this against the Mr. Z Steppe Wolf, you could see differences. It's nice how different interpretations are still possible when it comes to the one same thing, fur, and how they're rendered and taken care of, and how well they fall about the underlying tissue gives you a sense of whether they look right or not, and you can decide for yourself here. And likewise, we have the Mr. Z Steppe Wolf. And again, as I noted in my review of that model, there is something so peaceful and calm about this pose. And the fainter coloration just sells that overall idea of peace that I like so much. I think you can see very clearly the different styles here. Very soft application of paint on the Mr. Z. And the eyeballs just beautifully done. Although as viewer Horse 14T notes, perhaps not the most accurate. So that's pretty much it. I'm currently still on my little quest to learn about marine reptiles, but I promise you mammals is going to be next. It's regretful that I'm so fascinated by these animals and yet never really took the time out to learn more about them. So I'll be very interested to hear from the experts here. What do you think of the Rebor direwolf? What do you like about it, and what do you think could have been improved? Let me know in the comments below. Civilly, please. Rebor has in recent times started to make more accurate animals. And even though there's still some stylization going on, they're acceptable enough for me to save up for a genus I really like. I'm looking forward to seeing more non-dinosaurs from them. I can already think of a few I'd like them to tackle. I'll see you in the next video.